Could you hear me?
Yeah, we're live.
And yes, so most of the month today, students have the chance to go to the next subject. And tonight, so I'm also engaged by the from there to meet to be loud and not to meet. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guests and candidates for on a very special related party and what's coming.
What? So yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jason. We'll now move on to Simon from the Green Party.
Let me first echo what Jason today, thanking everyone here for organising this event, the first customer to this election in Bournemouth West, and my first customer, so thank you for that. Why you should vote? Well, we heard very much about the importance of voting, and the fact that most over 65 will vote, and most under 30s won't vote. And I think that's a shame, because your opinions and your values matter. And they need to be taken into account by government. Student voter registration is very low, and you're not being heard. So whether you're voting Green or one of the others, I think you should be out there and question code and get a word for it. For me, one more to reading government, one more backbencher, makes no difference whatsoever. One more Green makes a huge difference. Green Party is a progressive party. We're looking to the future, we're looking to you, we're looking to our children and our children's children to make the world a better place. If the Conservative Manifesto is totally ignored, renewable energy, not mention of it, lots of mention of fracking, which people say they don't want. I think that's cool. I think being strong doesn't mean attacking the weak and the disadvantaged. I think being stable doesn't mean having nuclear weapons that are attacking control of Americans. If you Trump is the current president, that's very scary. Anyway, on to that. For me, I am locally the only elected politician that isn't Tory, and I'm very much grateful to students for that. I was elected in 2015 by 59 votes, 14 after the account. And that shows you that every black vote matters. We have something such as well 2 votes. So, it's really important to get out there and share your opinions, put your extra accounts, and have your voice in the community. The Green Party wants to do differently. We want to make a future that is right for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Right, when I move to Connor.
Can I begin by echoing the thanks? This will, I suspect, be the one moment of an outbreak of consensus tonight across the panel. Thank you for organising tonight, and thank you for the work that you are doing, engaging the students, encouraging students to register and participate in this general election. It was J.M. Barrie, the author of Peter Pan, who only ever made one public speech in his life in 1922 to the undergraduates of St Andrews University in the aftermath of the First World War. He said to young people that he wanted them to rise up and demand an equality in decision making, because the decisions in national affairs will have more effect on your lives, as by definition you have longer to go than most of us on this panel, to varying degrees. Each of the candidates will talk to you tonight about why they want you to elect them to be the Member of Parliament for Bournemouth West. I have a slightly different proposition, because I am seeking re-election as the Member of Parliament for Bournemouth West. I was first elected in 2010 and I was re-elected in 2015. Now your vote will have 2 important impacts. It will obviously decide who the government of Britain is. And I will submit to you tonight that Theresa May has the character and the temperament to lead our country through a very challenging period that lies ahead. And she will be determined in getting the best possible deal for the United Kingdom as we prepare to leave the European Union. But your vote will have another, perhaps more direct consequence locally. It will decide who is going to be your Member of Parliament. And I am running very much on the record that I have as the Member of Parliament, and I'm very proud to be BU's Member of Parliament. I'm on campus at least once a week. I have done hundreds of interviews for undergraduates, principally through the media school, for their projects. I have brought investment to our town, most recently the announcement of the government of the massive investment in the Lansdowne up by the University Business Centre. I was responsible when I worked in the Treasury for getting the government to choose Bournemouth to be the place to have the world's first 5G live trial, working with BU and the Ordnance Survey in Southampton. The university is incredibly important to me. It is one of my top priorities. I meet the Vice Chancellor of Beacon, John Binney, pretty much on a monthly basis. I have been on texting terms with every single president of SUBU since I was first elected, including the man here to my left, to my right. Sorry, Daniel, that's the first time you've been to my right. The former president of SUBU, Daniel's predecessor, Chloe Shendall-Wilson, who's in the audience tonight, is now working for me in my office in London. I love being a member of Parliament for Bournemouth University, delivering for this place, and I see some of you looking at it. I'm very proud to have created a special leaflet talking about the work that I've done for BU and, of course, AUB if there are any Marshall University students in the audience. That's enough for me.
Yeah, that's about time. Yeah. Thank you very much, Dennis. Philip, it's you.
Oh, we're live. Okay, I think I want to start with why do I want to be an MP? And particularly, why do I want to be an MP for Bournemouth University and for Arts University Bournemouth? And the simple answer for that is I'm a graduate of Bournemouth University. I was given a fantastic opportunity in my 30s to come back here as a mature student. And part of the reason I want to stand is to repay a debt that I feel to the university. They've enabled me to pursue completely new career paths. Since leaving here, I got a master's degree at another university. I went to UCL, I trained to be a teacher. I'm now a teacher in the town. So I work on a daily basis with children who perhaps themselves might one day come here. So this is a very, very important place to me. So what's the point of voting? I think the fact that you're all here probably says I don't really need to answer that question. You're already engaged, you're already on board with the whole process. But this election particularly, David said it was the most exciting election that he's fought. For me, I think it's possibly the most important election that I've ever encountered. Because we're not just voting for a set of policies that are going to last 4 or 5 years, and then we get another government and we change them and we change direction and we swing one way and another. This one is all about the foundation that our whole country has rested on for the last 45 years. This one revolves around that elephant in the room that no one else has mentioned at the moment. Well, Connor did mention about the Brexit negotiations, but our relationship with the EU. Now, you're probably aware that the Lib Dems are very much an internationalist, outward-looking, pro-European Union party, as indeed the Pirate Party are. And we share many of the same goals as the Pirate Party. Now, we believe that to lose that relationship with Europe is going to be tremendously damaging for the country, and that every other policy you're going to hear talked about tonight rests upon that relationship with Europe. If we lose that relationship with Europe, if we lose the strength and the stability that we've had as members of the European Union, none of the other policies people are talking about will be able to be implemented. I'll leave it at that for now. We'll no doubt answer your questions as we go along.
Thank you to all the candidates. So it's now time to hand over to you, the audience, and I'm going to kindly ask Natalie to, facilitate the audience session. Do you need the mic? So if you've got a question, some of you have, pre-submitted questions. I've got them here, but just in case we've got live questions from the room, please, signify by raising up your hand. And Natalie would. Do you need?
Cool. So, has anyone got any questions?
My name's Drew. I'm a multimedia journalism student here at BU. I was having a quick look through your leaflet, Connor, and there's some kind words from our former student union president saying how much you care about the university and that you're always here to ensure staff and students feel represented. But under your government, you've facilitated and voted for various cuts to education. You voted against raising the voting age. You've voted against guaranteeing jobs for young people using public spending. You've repeatedly sort of shown off our university and used it to sort of make yourself and our constituency look good, and yet you've seemingly, looking at your voting record, never actually voted in our interests. When are you going to start doing that?
Do you? Yeah, thank you for that. Do you want to take the next question then?
Sure. Caston? Yeah.
Yeah. So my name's Elliot. I'm a psychology student here. My question is also to Mr. Burns. So following the Guardian's report on Theresa May's plans to make a large number of elderly people pay for their social care, do you not agree that there is a better way to deal with the crisis of funding, as she put it, than making more vulnerable people suffer, as your party appears to be making a habit of?
Thank you, Elliot. So we'll take one more question and go to Connor to respond. Just a hand. Caston.
Hi, Caston. My question is to Phil Dunn. Traditionally, students have always had a soft spot for the Liberal Democrats. However, in 2010, that all came crashing down. I can tell you the Lib Dems in 2010 had 13,225 votes in this constituency. However, in 2015, you all came down to 3,200. So you used to be the second party in this constituency. But since you crooked students who you promised to scrap tuition fees, and then actually you turned that and actually voted when you joined, the only time you were given power, you just broke all the promises that you had given. Why should anyone trust you with power again?
Thank you to all those who've asked questions. So I'll move to Connor and then Phil to respond.
So, Drew. Drew, the multimedia student, also not declaring president of Bournemouth University Liberal Democrats. Thank you for your very open-minded question. I make no apology whatsoever for promoting Bournemouth University. I make no apology for that whatsoever. Bournemouth University is a major driver to our local economy. It's one of the largest employers. It's a major driver not just across the conurbation of Bournemouth and Poole, it's a major driver across the southwest region. I make no apology either for using my work with Greg Clark, the Secretary of State for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, to convene a conference of all the universities in the southwest to talk about the university's role in developing a modern industrial strategy, one of the Prime Minister's key objectives. I make no apology for standing up at Prime Minister's Question Time and giving a platform to the incredible things that happen here within the digital economy through the media school. I make no apology for championing the vital role that this university plays in our local area. I also make no apology of being part of a government that has ensured that there are actually now more people from disadvantaged backgrounds going into higher education than there were before we came in. I'll tell you something else. I sat here, maybe not in this room, but on this campus in 2010, and there was a Lib Dem candidate. I'm on my third one. There was a Lib Dem candidate there who was cheered to the rafters for the promise that the Lib Dems would abolish tuition fees. And I said I would wait for the report and I would see what it said. We had to get funding into higher education. And I happen to believe that the system we now have in place, where we have removed upfront payments, you used to have to pay before you came, to now have a system that you repay after you graduate with certain income brackets. There's 21,000, you don't pay anything back until you're on 21,000, and if you dip below that, eventually it's written off. That has led to record investment in the higher education sector and record expansion in the numbers of students going to university. The question about the change that the Prime Minister announced in Bradford today to the how we're going to pay for care for the elderly. Look, this is difficult. We are living in a country, in a Western society, where the number of elderly people is growing. Right, that's a good thing. People are living longer. I don't want to kill them off. That would, I'm sure, not get much support amongst the elderly or the young, because we'll all be old potentially one day. We have got to find a way to pay for that. And what we have said today, and it's difficult and it's going to go down, it's going to be challenging with some of the people who are going to be affected. What we are saying is that if you are having care in your home or you have to go into residential care, we will protect £100,000 of your asset. But when you die, then we will recoup some of that care cost from your estate. Now, that basically means we won't be passing on large amounts of money with the taxpayer picking up the bill to children. We will be recouping that cost. Now, the alternative to that, by the way, is that we pay for the whole thing through general taxation. And we have the ladies and gentlemen who work in Asda on the checkout paying taxes to ensure that children get a massive inheritance. I don't think that's right. And this is the first one we have done where we're actually refocusing the generational fairness on this. We live in a society now where the elderly have done much, much better than those in working age. And I think this is the right decision. I think it's controversial. I think it's difficult. But politics is about making difficult decisions. It's not always about going for the round of applause.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for responding, Connor. Phil?
Is it going to squeak? Right, is that one working? Yeah. Am I allowed to comment on the adult social care thing while I'm here? Yeah? Yeah? I'll come on to tuition fees in a moment. But as far as adult social care goes, I've just spent 2 years as a full-time carer for my mother who has Alzheimer's. She has now moved into a care home full-time because I could no longer provide her with the care that she needed. I spent 2 years trying to get support from the agencies that were there, allegedly, to support me. I had the stages where I had to go and sit in social care offices and refuse to leave until they brought me the right forms to fill in to get the help we needed. Adult social care in this country at the moment is an utter disgrace. We need to do something about that now. And if that means paying for that through general taxation, then we should. And that is one of our policies in our manifesto, is that health and social care will be funded out of a 1p rise in general taxation, so income tax, share dividends, to provide the services that people need. Now, in terms of my mother's home, my mum and dad worked hard for an extremely long time to build a home, and they bought into this idea that the best investment was bricks and mortar. And the best way to leave something to your family was in bricks and mortar. And now what we're seeing is that no longer applies. Let's take that away. Let's take away that legacy that they built up to hand on to me, my brothers, my children. So there are the future prospects of, let me think, 1, 2, 7, 9 people that are being wiped out by this new policy on health, on social care. Okay, so I'm not prepared to support that policy. Now let's come to tuition fees. On tuition fees, we got the punishment we deserved. I make no apologies for that. Okay, we made a promise, we didn't keep it. We made a promise, we went into coalition with the Conservatives. I resigned from the Liberal Democrats when we went into coalition with the Conservatives because I did not join this party to support a Conservative government. when the tuition fee promise wasn't met, rightly got the punishment we deserved. But let me ask you to cast your mind back to any other party leader who has publicly apologised for not meeting a pledge. Nick Clegg apologised very publicly. It was even set to music. I think it even got into the charts. Name me one other politician who has ever apologised for not meeting a pledge. But we got hammered for that. So when you hear people talking about politicians are dishonest, politicians never live with the consequences of their actions, just remember what happened to us when we tried to be honest. If you want to encourage honesty from politicians, then you need to respect it when you get it. Now, in terms of breaking all our promises, we had 12 key promises in our manifesto in 2010. We delivered 11 of them. Tuition fees was the only one of our 12 key pledges that we did not deliver, and yet we will never be allowed to forget that. And we won't allow ourselves to forget that. First conference after our dismal election showing, the first message we got from Tim Farron, our new leader who replaced Nick Clegg, and incidentally did not vote in favour of tuition fees. He voted against the introduction of tuition fees, as did most of our surviving MPs. First thing he said to us was, we will never again, as a party, make a pledge that we will not fight tooth and nail to deliver. And that is now in our DNA. That experience of 2015 will never leave us. So if we make a pledge, then you have to take it. We will fight as strong as we can to deliver it. That's the lesson learned from tuition fees.
Thank you, Phil. I was gonna ask a question, so you all could respond if that's all right. Yeah, cool. Right, so like I said, some of you have submitted questions in advance, so I'll just read one of them. What is your opinion on the privatization on the NHS? And we would start with Jason. You've got it, Mike.
So privatisation of the NHS, as I'm sure you're probably aware, most parties, I think, are against this idea. We feel it's very much a sort of social right and so on, that the NHS be there to sort of protect us. We pay national insurance, and the idea is that that national insurance is there to be that sort of social protection under the NHS. So we are strongly against it being privatised in any kind of format. Already you're seeing sort of adverts for doctors charging fees to be seen and so on, and we feel that this is not right. We are aware that there is an ageing population, and if we come back to briefly the topic of social care, we feel that there are other methods that you can do that. Again, if you actually look around for support for people for the NHS, most people actually surveyed were generally quite happy to pay a little bit more to actually protect the NHS in its current format, rather than go out and pay a fee to go and see somebody. So again, we feel that should be done via national insurance. Excuse me.
Okay, if you don't mind, I'd like to also answer some of the questions that were, or comment on some of the questions that were put forward before. On NHS, we are totally against the privatisation, and we work constantly with the unions, Unison and the Unite Union, to help fight any privatisation. One of the things that hasn't been mentioned is, we're desperately needing nurses and doctors, and yet this government has taken away student nurses' bursaries. That is absolutely ridiculous. We need to encourage more people to come. We need to encourage more and more people to come into nursing, and nursing bursaries are absolutely essential. Whereas everybody else, and when I was a student, I used to work part-time. Nurses have to work on the wards. They don't have the opportunity of getting part-time jobs, so they desperately need those bursaries. Now, if you don't mind, if I could just quickly go back over Drew's talking about the university. when I was going to say if elected, I want to be elected, and certainly I would support this university. This university is such an important part of our local economy, and it's not only that. A number of students who come here to university also stay on in the town and are very good entrepreneurs, and they grow businesses around here. They employ people in their companies. So the university will be something I will certainly back. On Elliot's mention of the aged, I have a 96-year-old stepmother who lives on her own. Social care is absolutely vitally important. So once again, I ask you to look on the Labour Party website. In our spending manifesto, in the spending column, you will see that we've committed to £2.1 billion extra in social care. And then to Carsten's having a go at the Liberal Democrats for scrapping the tuition fees and going into coalition. We were told that they are living with the consequence of that. Ladies and gentlemen, people in Bournemouth are living with the consequences of the last time we ever had a Liberal Democrat council in this town. Because when we had a Liberal Democrat council 12 years ago, they sold off our yellow buses. That bus company was for 103 years, largely under the control of the Conservatives, was part and parcel of our town. And when the Liberal Democrats came in, they sold it off to the French, to a French company that's owned by the Paris metropolitan area. So we're living with their consequences. That company was a profitable company that invested in the buses, and there was no reason. We also had a swimming pool in the BIC. When the Liberal Democrats came into power, they closed that down. That wasn't a Victorian bathhouse. That was a state-of-the-art modern gradual entry pool, and that was closed down. And they closed and they bulldozed the Winter Gardens after claiming that was going to be the thing that they were going to save. So they might have been hammered for the 2015 debacle over student fees. But believe me, in Bournemouth, we have suffered and we are still suffering. Our bus company is no longer owned by us. We no longer have a swimming pool down in the town centre.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's past 2 years over.
Thank you. I'll start with the NHS, if I may. The NHS, it's a travesty what this government is doing. Starving it of funding, then telling us it's not working, so it needs privatisation. That is outrageous. The NHS has been there all of my life, all of your lives, and I hope it'll be there for our children and our children's children, but I severely doubt that if we elect the Conservatives in for the next 5 years. My son was born at Bournemouth Hospital. My two daughters were born at Poole. And one of them sadly not with us anymore. And the support I got from the NHS was top notch. It was fantastic, and to be without that it's outrageous. It's a travesty. We must do everything we can to save the NHS against this Conservative government. Moving on to university tuition fees. Green Party believe they should be scrapped. I think they should be scrapped. I think it scares a lot of people to even go to university with the thought that they're going to have such a huge debt over their heads for years to come. And talking about education, I hear that from the NUT that if it continues the policy at the moment, schools will lose £3 billion in real terms by 2020. That means 5 teachers at Talbot Primary School. So the children won't be able to go to university because they won't be getting the education. That's another travesty. Companies and what the Lib Dems did to the local one. What is the Tory government doing to the train companies, most of which are now in foreign hands? I think we need to think before we put our X's on the ballot box about what we should be doing. Theresa May wants a meritocracy, but that's not a meritocracy for everyone. If you've worked hard all your life and you get ill and you need support in your elderly years, the social care isn't there. It's not strong enough. It's not stable enough. It is not strong and stable. It is again a travesty. It is a meritocracy, but only for those that do really well, not for those that only do quite well.
Thank you, Simon. So the question was about the privatisation of the National Health Service. There is no privatisation of the National Health Service. All the all the main political parties are committed to a national health service free at the point of use, paid for out of taxation. All of us are. And it is, I think, disingenuous to try and pretend that there is a program of privatization. The biggest extension of the use of private organizations within the National Health Service actually happened under the last Labour government. And we have invested enormously in the National Health Service. There are now, I think it's more than 12,100 more nurses and midwives than there were in 2010, over 11,000 more doctors. And locally, it's about how we get the resources that we put into the National Health Service to work best for local people. That's why the clinical commissioning group led by Tim Goodson is out to consultation about a potential reconfiguration of the services between Poole Hospital and the Royal Bournemouth Hospital to ensure that we are concentrating those resources. And I've been very clear on this, that I will only support proposals that come forward locally if I can be sure that those are going to improve the clinical outcomes for the people that I have represented for the last 7 years. The National Health Service, I'll say something maybe slightly controversial on this. We have a growing elderly population. We have continuing breakthroughs in medical science that generate new cures that weren't available previously, create new drugs that treat people who hitherto would have not been treatable. I would like to see us get together as political parties and agree how we organize the National Health Service together over the next generation. I think it is disappointing that at every election, the National Health Service is used as a political football to try and scare the electorate, when every political party is committed to a National Health Service free at the point of use.
Thank you, Conor. Phil.
With regard to NHS privatisation, there is undoubtedly more use of private companies within the NHS. There are contracts being awarded to private companies, and all I would say on that is the NHS isn't a cash cow to be milked. It's a service that all of us have grown up with. As I started as a Liberal, and then as I became a Liberal Democrat, it's one of those things that's in our DNA. It was born out of the Beveridge report. Beveridge was one of the great Liberals that we look back to, working alongside a Labour government at that time, showing what progressive parties can achieve when they work together. In terms of the future of the NHS, what we're proposing, as I've said earlier, is the increase in income tax to provide a ring-fenced fund for the NHS and social care, coming to 6 billion annually, as opposed to the 8 billion that's been pledged by Conservatives over the term of the Parliament. So this is a serious amount of money. We're serious about funding the NHS, and we're serious about paying for it, which is why we have said about increasing general taxation. But what we've tried to do to get away from this, and Conor's rightly said about the NHS becoming a political football, and to try and get away from that, we're proposing an independent body that would look at the NHS and its requirements every 3 years, would report back to government, similar to the OBR in terms of government spending. This would look exclusively at health and social care services, make recommendations to government, upon which government would act. So it's about taking a lot of those decisions out of the political arena and giving it to the people who actually know what the services are, what has to be offered, where the money's needed, where the resources are needed. And I think that's a sensible way forward, and to a degree reinforces what you were saying about it not being a political football.
Thank you very much to all candidates. So before, thank you. Before I hand over to Nina, the hashtag for this debate is SUBU Debate 17. So tweet. Nina, over to you.
Hi, guys. So there's been a lot of talking on this side of the room. Let's take it back to this side of the room and take your questions. I have a first comment from Alex that you've heard from before. So
Yeah, thanks very much for all your points, guys. One thing that I think young people in here will be very concerned about is housing. And housing is something that we find young individuals are really feeling a bit demotivated about. Around 9 to 10% of 18 to 24-year-olds actually have their own home at the moment. And as you can imagine, students in this room that will be leaving university maybe soon or in 1 or 2 years are really bothered about what government policy will actually be from your party about housing and about affordability of rents. So my question to all of the candidates, and I suppose it's a serious question, and it's not about commenting about what the other party has or has not done, it's about what your party will be doing for housing for students and young people in this country.
Thank you, Alex.
So that's a question about housing for students. We'll go on to take some more questions and then we'll go back to the panelists. Yeah? Can you please state your name?
Yeah, my name's Stuart Lane. I'm a master's student here at Bournemouth University studying the green economy, which is effectively a course on climate change. We had the expression, the elephant in the room earlier, and I think nothing is more fitting than that expression for climate change, because frankly, every single policy we're talking about today is founded on a planet that's livable. And it won't be the rate we're going. 97% of PhD level scientists that have looked into this agree. I find it hard to believe I can attend these events and read manifestos and not hear the urgency that's required around this subject. And today's manifesto from the Conservative Party has basically proposed that new wells and fracking won't require planning permission. It will be automatically permitted development. Local councils will not have a say. Here locally in Swanage, we've got a proposal for a new oil and gas well. And I'd like to hear the panel's thoughts on the implications for climate change of new development and the implication, and Connor does have a slight advantage because I've written to the Secretary of State a few weeks ago and copied him in on this, but the implication to the Jurassic Coast World Heritage Site, as UNESCO oppose any type of mineral extraction within the setting of the World Heritage Site. We only have one in the UK. We're bidding for another, the Lake District. We're due to find out in a few weeks whether we win that bid, and we're in the process of actually undermining the UNESCO rules for the only World Heritage Site we have in the UK by putting a gas well in it. I'd like to hear the panel's thoughts on climate change and about our very local and immediate problem of new oil and gas development in Dorset.
Thank you very much. So far we have a question about student housing and climate change. Next questions, please. Can I get a microphone to? Thank you. Please state your name and course and
my name's Tinya and I'm studying business studies. My question's to Connor, and I wanted to ask, in your manifesto you said you're planning to make a 12 billion welfare savings. Where exactly are you finding that money from? Where are you taking that money from?
Okay, will we take?
Yeah.
Are we taking more questions or are we going back? Yeah. Okay, can we get the microphone, please?
Thank you. My name's Harvey Taylor, and I just want to ask a quick question, and also I want to echo the candidates' gratitude for Bournemouth Student Union organising this. I don't know if you realise, Bournemouth Student Union, this, apart from the Arts University, I think are doing a similar event either this Friday or next Friday. This is the only opportunity anyone in Bournemouth has to publicly debate the election issues. The only opportunity. So that's how important this is, and that's how lacking we are in opportunities to express real democracy. I'm a local resident. You might have seen me outside my house trying to get Lib Dems, Greens and Labour Party to unite, put up a united candidate in order to defeat the Tories. That train has left the station. I have a question. All right?
Sorry, are you a student or staff?
I'm a father of 2 students at university who are from Bournemouth. This is the only opportunity that I have to engage in the debate. And the question I'd like to ask is, should the amount people are paid reflect the actual value that they contribute to society? And just to give you a little bit of background on this, I just want to give you 5 quick figures. The average salary for a nurse is 23,000. The average salary for a policeman on the beat is about 24,000. Average salary for a secondary school teacher like Phil, Liberal Democrats, about 28,000. Construction manager like David Stokes is about 35,000. For someone acting as a consultant to a local engineering company like Connor, it's 65,000.
Sorry, only.
I want to know from the panel, should the amount people are paid reflect the value that they contribute to society?
You're going to force me to remove you from this. Yeah, thank you. Alex, can I ask? Alex.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, just to re-clarify the points I made earlier, only students and staff of AUB and BU can participate. And I I really appreciate that, Catherine. Really good point. I think it's the SUBU debates policy to only allow students and staff to participate. However, it's open to the community as well to come and observe. And I really appreciate everyone's emotions, and thanks for conveying that. I'm just going to ask the candidates to respond to the questions asked before. Yeah, can I just ask them to respond? Right, can it be now? Sorry.
Society, and should there be upper and lower limits?
Thank you for that. I'm gonna ask the candidates to respond. Could you let me speak, please?
It's really important.
Okay. That question has come. Yeah. I mean, that question has come from a staff of. Can I speak, please? Thank you very much. So that question has come from. I'm the chair. I was clear about this, and I'm the chair of this meeting. I would appreciate if you respect that as well. I have every right to remove you if I feel you're making others feel uncomfortable. I'm sorry. I think it's a space for everyone to feel comfortable to express their opinions, and everyone needs to enjoy that. It's your right, and you have a right to do that. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask all candidates to respond to the first 3 questions, and yeah. Do you want to go first, Phil?
Okay, the first question was on housing. And what you will find in our manifesto is an immediate reinstatement of housing benefit for people who've had it removed, which I believe were the under 21s. I just think that's an outrageous policy. I cannot understand for the life of me what people were thinking when they came up with this idea of removing housing benefit from young people. It seems that if you're a young person and you want to go out on your own, you want to set up your home, you want to try and establish a base for yourself, you want to try and start to build a life, you're not going to get any support with that. So, go back and live with mummy and daddy. I think that's really not an option for a lot of people. In Bournemouth, we have a dreadful housing situation. We've got around about 4,500 people on the waiting list here in Bournemouth. I do an annual
freedom of information request on this, and the figure remains stubbornly around 4,500. We have a local authority that has maybe built a handful of properties over the last few years, but nothing like what's needed to address the housing situation. But at the same time, through these joint venture companies with Morgan Sindall and through Seascape and all these various other little offshoots, we're seeing luxury flats popping up all over the place in Bournemouth. I think we're talking between 400 and 500 being built on the Winter Gardens site. We're seeing them being built on St Stephen's car park. We're seeing them being built here, there and everywhere. And it seems that every little scrap of council land that we've got at the moment is disappearing underneath these top-end luxury flats. How does that serve the people of Bournemouth? And what on earth are Bournemouth Borough Council doing, spending our money to invest in these projects when they're leaving 4,500 people to rot on a housing waiting list? That is just outrageous. In terms of the national situation, Liberal Democrat policy in this manifesto is to put a major focus on building of affordable homes, whether that's for rent or starter homes for people. We're looking at a target of, by the end of the Parliament, 300,000 new homes a year. And that would include the development of 10 new garden cities throughout the country, which would be built to the highest environmental standards using the latest in renewable energies, renewables for heat sources, for generating electricity. So ensuring that the houses that we're building are carbon neutral houses. So we're not just talking about housing, we're talking about commitment to the environment as well. Which leads on to the climate change question. And again, what we're proposing in terms of environmental protection is, first off, ensuring that we stick to the agreement signed in Paris, which, to their credit, I notice is also in the Conservative manifesto as well, which, if there is a good thing in there, I will say it. I found 4. We would invest in renewables majorly in terms of developing new technology, new industry throughout the country. It's an area where we could lead the world. And rather than putting all our efforts into fracking and producing more and more and more hydrocarbons, which is, there are 5 paragraphs in the Conservative manifesto that revolve around this drive for hydrocarbons through fracking. We think we should be devoting our energy into becoming world leader in those renewables. We have the skills, we have the knowledge through our fantastic universities, and we need to start applying that to the benefit of us and our neighbours around the world. Because what happens in our atmosphere affects everybody. It doesn't stop at the English Channel. So we have a responsibility to the planet, we've got a responsibility to ourselves, and we've got a responsibility to our neighbours to ensure that we develop those technologies, tend to invest in those majorly. Just wondering if there was anything else I needed to say. Just on the fracking issue, I note one thing, Stuart, you did say was about fracking being part of permitted development. I think it says in the Tory manifesto that non-fracking drilling would be permitted development, whereas fracking there would be a presumption in favour of, or something like that. So there's a slight doffing of the cap to the fact that fracking might not be the best thing. But my objection to fracking isn't so much the issue of pollution of groundwater and all that, which we know about. It's the fact it's hydrocarbons. What are we doing? Why are we wanting to pump more hydrocarbons into the atmosphere? Why? The Tory manifesto again talks about having electric cars by 2025 or something like that. I can't remember the year. What's the point of electric cars if you're burning hydrocarbons to generate the electricity to run them on? It's a complete waste of time. So we have to be looking at wind power. And yes, we may have to have offshore wind in places like Navitas Bay rather than tucking it all away off of Orkney and the Hebrides. We've got thousands of miles of coastline. We could power ourselves very nicely with the wind that's generated around our shores. And as for onshore wind, there seems to be a complete aversion to any sort of onshore wind. Again, I think that's very short-sighted, and we do need to look at that again.
Thank you very much, Phil. I'm going to quickly look to, I see a hand there. Did you want to respond to?
So I'm Joe. I'm doing law. I was just going to ask about how you plan on finding the money for all that investment.
Okay, in terms of capital funding, that would come from looking at restructuring the way that corporation tax works, capital gains tax works. There's a lot of cuts planned or reductions in those taxes that are planned by the Conservatives. We wouldn't go ahead with those. We would take that money and redirect it into those areas that we think need major investment.
Thank you, Phil. I'm over to Connor to respond.
Thank you. Can I deal with the one that was directed at me first off? Harvey Taylor, the guy Daniel cut off, knows that I am not scared of debate. I debated with him when he was an independent candidate at the 2010 election on numerous occasions. It's not up to any of us on this panel to determine how many debates there will be. I have always accepted at least 4 debates where there have been hustings with the other candidates. They haven't on this occasion come forward. I'm doing this debate. I'm not remotely worried about engaging in debate. So the question was really about the fact that I, in addition to being a member of parliament, do consultancy work, something that I have been very open about on the 2 occasions that I have been elected, something that you know the figures about, because it is declared in the register of members' interests in parliament according to the rules that are laid down, which I absolutely and fully comply with. And you know, I don't have a family, I don't have a partner. I do 80 hours or more a week as member of parliament for Bournemouth West, and in my own time I do some work for a company that I worked for before I became a member of parliament. I have to tell you, I think that gives me an extra insight into some of the things that government and so on are doing in the economy and how that impacts on businesses. That is useful to me in doing the job that I do, and I pay the tax on that absolutely in full, lots of it. And in terms of, you know, the contribution you make through tax, you probably know that anyone who earns over £100,000 a year has the personal allowance clawed back. So you lose the 11,500 of personal allowance, you're taxed on that. It's all out there, it's all in the public domain. I've never tried to hide it, nor would I. Let me move on to the question of the Jurassic Coast. This is a really good one. Well, you asked his question. You asked it, and I've answered your question, sir. Can I move on to the question of the? Can I move on to the question? Well, carry on. Yeah.
You wouldn't be frightened today, obviously, because that's not what you haven't answered is whether you think the amount that people are paying should reflect the value that their activity contributes to society. Because Harvey read out some figures for what nurses earn. We all think nurses do an incredibly important work. Then teachers, then engineers, people who build things, and then politicians who hold down 1, 2, maybe 3, 4, 5 jobs and get huge salaries. Now, do you think really honestly that the amount of work you do for those salaries is in any way commensurate with the value that that work gives to society? And do you think maybe that nurses, teachers, doctors, bus drivers could earn nearer to what you earn for the similar number of hours?
Well, the logic...
Or do you think there should be upper limits? I mean, you say it's all out there in the public domain. That's not an answer. All sorts of things are in the public domain, and all sorts of things in the public domain are plainly wrong. Now, people like you, Connor, unfortunately, I have to be personal because I also know what you earn, and I know what you do around town because you do these leaflets, and I see that you meet up with quite important people in town. What do you really contribute to us, and do you really think you deserve the money that you earned compared to what the nurses earn in the local hospital? And we know nurses struggle because we hear it in the news all the time. We all know that nurses struggle with the money they earn. We know nurses are going to food banks. Do you go to a food bank? You can answer just that if you want.
I am paid.
It's up to you. Answer whichever question you feel not frightened to answer.
I'm also going to answer the other 3 that other people in the audience.
Go for it.
The
Connor,
other 3
don't
questions that other people in the audience asked.
I'm in the audience.
The logic of what you are saying is that you would like to live in some form of
That's not
Marxist
what I said
society
at all.
where everyone had the
That's
same
rubbish. I
income.
didn't mention that. I just said you think what you earn is commensurate with the work you do and the value it has to society. Didn't mention communism.
Can I please ask us to please give the candidates to the time and chance to respond, please? You know, just so everyone, we have a healthy debate.
I just want to know that he's a good guy who cares about things. The other people on the panel, I can tell, are thinking hard about how to make society better. I just suspect that Conservatives aren't that hard.
And I do appreciate questions to, you know, candidates with regards to their policies and parties. And let's try to be less personal if we can. But yeah, thank you.
It's personal, isn't it? It is personal.
Yes, I'm just gonna go back to. So I'm going to go back to Connor to respond however it feels, and then maybe answer the other questions as well.
So as a member of parliament, I'm paid the same as every other member of parliament. That is set. And by the way, if any of these guys are elected, they will be paid the same as I am paid as a member of parliament. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Who knows? The point is that since the expenses scandal in the last, or the parliament before last, that is now determined by an independent body. Members of parliament no longer have any say on the setting of their pay and conditions, and that is absolutely right. And I think so long as I am clear and direct and honest about what I do, as well as being a member of parliament, and so long as it does not negatively impact on my commitment to serving my constituents, I am happy to operate within the rules that are there and are clear and are laid down, and I fully comply with them. As I say, the reason everybody knows it is because it is there in a public declaration, in a public register, as indeed lots of other people do things. I do other things, by the way, in my spare time that I'm not paid for. I'm patron of the Crumbs charity in Ensbury Park, helping young disabled people get the training and confidence to go and get work. I'm patron of the Fernheath Play Association up in West High, one of the most deprived parts of Bournemouth. I don't shout about all of that. I don't talk a lot about all of that, but I do a lot of work for them in helping them in support. You know, caring isn't always measured by how much you talk about it. I try to help the people who come to me all the time with problems. I've helped thousands of people in my constituency. Yes, literally thousands. Over the last 7 years, I have helped thousands of... I have 2 full-time caseworkers who also work with me in serving local people. I have a member of staff in London who is also helping local people. The team over 7 years have helped thousands of local people who have come to them with difficulties and challenges. With that, I will, if I may, go on to the other 2 questions. There was a very direct question on the £2 billion of welfare savings that Theresa announced this morning. They come from a change to the winter fuel payment to make that means tested rather than a universal benefit for all pensioners. I think that's quite sensible. I don't think it makes any sense at all to be handing out hundreds of pounds to very wealthy pensioners to pay for their fuel when we should be targeting the help at those who need it most. The question on housing, look, and the point that was made over here, you're absolutely right. People are sick and tired of point scoring on this. All governments over the last 20 years have not built enough houses, and we need an absolute drill down commitment to doing that. And that is what has been announced in the manifesto and in the last few days. We are committed to delivering 1 million new homes by 2021. Now look, the house building fell off a cliff in 2007 because of the financial crisis. It's taken a long time to recover. There were encouraging numbers of new starts last year. It's going in the right direction, but there's a hell of a lot more to do. We need to speed up the planning system. We need to give local authorities the power to take brownfield land that is being land banked by developers who are not bringing in development on that site and bring those homes to market. That the supply is going to be a major part of dealing with the challenge of getting particularly young people onto the housing market. By the way, I have also, back to the thing of helping, I've helped a number of students who've come to me having problems with letting agents and landlords and the conditions that they're in, and I've taken those up as their constituency member of parliament, because I've always taken the view that a student who's here for 3 or 4 years is as much my constituent for the time they're here than the lady who's born in Winton, sends her kids to local schools, ends up dying in Winton, is buried at Cemetery Junction. So long as you're here, you should be served fully by the Member of Parliament for Bournemouth West, whoever that is. The final one, of course, was the question on the Jurassic Coast and the fracking. Look, I would be a complete hypocrite if I didn't say to you, given the campaign that I waged on the Navitas Bay wind farm, and I waged a campaign against the Navitas Bay wind farm, and the thing actually that swung it with the planning inspectorate in the end is they said that it would turn the Jurassic Coast, England's only naturally designated World Heritage Site, from being one that was set largely in a natural setting to one that was set largely in a man-made setting. That was the reason that the planning inspectorate gave for the decision to decline the Navitas Bay wind farm in the bay. If there were to be fracking and that would impact on that UNESCO World Heritage designation, then I would fight it every step of the way. It would be rank hypocrisy to fight one on that grounds and not stand with them on the other one on the same grounds.
Thank you. Thank you, Connor. I would quickly, run through the other candidates, then take 2 responses from the audience.
Thank you. Okay, on housing, the Green Party also agree that the housing situation is atrocious. I live in Winton. I visit many of my residents, and I see some of the kids, especially students. The types of properties that are rented out, some of them certainly shouldn't be, and something needs to be done. A rent cap is something we should consider. Introducing longer tenancies. At the moment, people get 6 months and they have to get another tenancy. Quite often they have to pay huge fees to keep the tenancy, which fees for nothing, basically, fees for signing a piece of paper. I'm very pro compulsory landlord registration scheme, so that landlords live up to the standards that they should live up to. Their properties should be inhabitable. And I think I haven't seen our manifesto is not out yet, but we will be looking at providing hundreds of thousands of socially rented housing by 2025, and bringing empty homes back into use, has been spoken about. Jurassic Coast. Well, if we are to stick to the Paris Accord, we need to leave 2/3 of oil and gas in the ground. If we continue with this fracking, we're not going to do that. We will miss the Paris Accord. And Paris Accord is not just a nice thing. It's essential for the future of the planet. It's essential that we look after this planet that we live on. And I know it's a very hard concept for people to get hold of, and it's very easy. Here I am with a single-use plastic bottle. Terrible for the planet. We need to be thinking about everything we do, and it's not easy. There'll be hard decisions we have to make. It is for the sake of our children's future. It is our planet. We need to look after it. It's where we live. We won't be able to fly off to Mars or anywhere else to live. We've got to live here, so we've got to look after it. We've got to do something. It's been said basically about the Jurassic Coast, which accounts for 6,000 to 8,000 jobs, 300 to 350 million pounds of income per year is brought in by the Jurassic Coast. If we risk that by oil exploration, I think that is. How can we risk that? It is a terrible thing to do. I will briefly touch on Navitas Bay. Navitas Bay, as you can imagine, was something I was fully supportive. It would have been 9 miles out from the coast, and a lot of the comments and press at the time were incorrect, shall we say. You wouldn't be able to hear them. You'd barely be able to see them. But there we go. We've moved on from there. Perhaps it'll come back, perhaps it won't. Perhaps we can do some tidal waves instead. Yeah, carry on. Yeah. 97% of PhD students can't be wrong. Can they? No, they can't. And to do with income, I don't think we should attack Connor for his. It's a meritocracy after all. He's managed to get himself several good jobs, well paid. He's got nothing to spend them on. So, any ideas? I don't mean, I'm not being disrespectful. I mean, I don't mean to be. I don't mean to be. One thing before I finish is the one thing that does concern me is if you're working 80 hours as an MP, so many hours in all these other jobs, how can you do a good job? I will commit that if I get elected, I will just have the one job. Okay?
Okay, if we go back to the question, so Alex here asking on housing, a very, very important issue, and I have to declare an interest. My job is to build roads that you put the houses next to, but that's not the reason that I want to support the Labour Party's proposal to build over 1 million homes, with at least half of them for social rent. We desperately need houses. We want to also legislate to ban the letting agencies' fees for tenants, and we want to reinstate housing benefit for the under 21s. Now, Stuart asked about climate change. If you go into our manifesto, you will see we have a ban on fracking. We're also saying that we should ensure that 60% of the UK's energy supplies comes from zero carbon or renewable sources by the year 2030. I would like to open it up a little bit more. When you said climate change was very important, I'm particularly concerned with the way in which we are using the planet. I mean, we're taking fish out of the sea faster than they can reproduce. We're taking minerals out of the ground that will never get renewed, and we are putting rubbish into the ground. The environment is absolutely at the forefront of all our futures, and we've got to start caring for this planet. And it's not just the wind and the waves and the weather, it's going to be all the resources we're using and how we use them. So that's Stuart's thing. And then I think it was Tanya who's asked about savings. I urge you all to go to the Labour Party website. You can print this 8-page document that clearly states how Labour is going to fund all their promises. So on one page, you've got how we're going to spend it, and on the other, you've got how we're going to raise it. So you can get that from the website. Everything is funded. And then on the question of jobs, I assure you, as I say, when I get elected, I will only be the only pay I will receive is the pay of an MP. Thank you very much.
Hello. Right. So first off, let's be honest here. As the Pirate Party, we're standing 10 candidates, so we're never going to be a majority anyway, regardless, even if we're all voted in. So our housing policy is primarily to support or oppose, depending on what's happening with the relevant parties. Obviously, we're very supportive of further social housing. I personally live in a privately rented house. I don't own my own property. So that kind of covers that one off. I also have a kind of vested interest in scrapping admin when it comes to renewing tenancy agreements. I've paid it myself a number of years. So that's where the party stands. With regards to Stuart, actually, we haven't touched on a few topics that are quite close to my heart. First off, last year, how many of you have heard about solar? It used to be subsidised. You used to get adverts about it in the paper all the time. Have a look at solar. Last year, feed-in tariff changed. They reversed it all. The amount that you would get subsidised changed quite dramatically, and solar's disappeared off the face of everything. We would look to obviously revisit that. Again, we would never have a majority, so it's always going to be a bit of a push and a challenge, but this is something that is quite close. Likewise, I heard a report today that actually our air pollution is worse than Mexico, Brazil, USA. I think this is also something we need to tackle quite massively. And again, it's all around, as a Pirate Party, what we can do to try and influence things like cycle schemes to reduce the diesel cars. And again, obviously, there are different ideas being toyed around with regards to scrapping them and scrapping payments and so on and so forth. So we are very much an evidence-based policy-led party. So again, we would need to have a look at different trials, different pricing points on how we can look to try and alleviate some of these. I will actually say to Connor, I watched his defending of the Nautilus Bay, and I think he did an absolutely fabulous job on the day, so I'll certainly give you that. And again, we are of the same vein. We are completely opposed to fracking. Moving on to Harvey, I can assure you I would only do one job. I'm currently a business development manager. As I said, I rent, I can't afford to buy a house. And so that kind of puts you where I would look at that type of thing. And with regards to our manifesto, it was released yesterday, but it's not on our website just yet. We're obviously a small party, but it will be going up very shortly. But it was an open, crowdsourced manifesto. So we believe that actually the party takes its lead from all of our members, not just the leadership or otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you to all our candidates. So I'm going to hand over to Nina to take the last round of audience
Do we have a
questions.
response to that, or is it the question?
If we just, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll just go to questions.
So the last round of questions from the audience. Thank you.
I'd just like to briefly say this wasn't organised by the student union. It was organised by students, myself. It was originally an idea from Elliot. And if you were a staff member in my faculty, I wouldn't be very pleased. Students have organised this for a chance. If residents want to organise our hustings, email these guys. That's all we did. We didn't pay them. We didn't do anything. They're really easy and up for coming. It wasn't hard. It took like a couple of weeks. I've given time out of deadlines, time out of my exam revision to organise this. And it's a shame that you've decided to sort of shout over it and things like that. It's really disappointing for me as a student. And it's one of the many reasons why we don't get involved in politics is the ageism. I faced it as a party member, as have anybody else in any other party. On to a question. The Tories have said that they want to bring in voter ID registration, a policy traditionally used by Republicans in America to stop ethnic minorities and poorer people from voting Democrat. It's estimated that 3.5 million people do not have the ID required to vote. That's 7.5% of the electorate. Why are you doing this? Is voter fraud a big issue? Because you haven't spoken about it before in neither of any of the other parties. And do any of the other parties have any plans to enfranchise more people or disenfranchise others?
Cool. Thanks, Drew.
Okay, there's people with microphones, so we starting at the back. Yeah.
My name is Chelsea. I'm a second-year psychology student. I have some questions for all party members regarding Brexit. Firstly, how will you influence your party to make Brexit a positive experience for students regarding freedom of movement in the EU and working in Europe? And secondly, we mentioned NHS and nurses. Where are we going to find new nurses? Most of our nurses, not most, but a lot of them come from the EU. They're quitting because they feel they don't feel welcome here anymore. We can't really keep finding nurses from our own country because we don't have places to train them in our hospitals, and we can't get them from anywhere else because people who voted for Brexit don't want immigration from any other countries. So where are we going to get nurses from, and how is the NHS not facing a crisis at this point?
Thank you for this very important question. If I could just add to that and ask, just because I'm myself a European student, and what your plan is for students, the Europeans that are right now in the country, what the plan is for the future, just to add to this, not just for British students, but Europeans myself. So let's go on and yeah, guy in the hat, please. Thank you.
Hi there, my name's Jack. I'm an economics student. Connie just touched on the winter fuel payment, and my question is, so my granddad receives a winter fuel payment, even though he has quite a nice private pension. Jeremy Corbyn came out earlier on a Facebook post saying that this was a bad idea. So my question to David, and I just want to understand, like, how is stopping him getting this money? Why can't it be spent on something better else?
Thank you. One more.
Thank you, sorry. Are we taking more questions?
Yeah, one more, yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Kola. My question is for all the parties. It was a snap election, and being a student, I expect every leader to at least show who they really are. And the current conservative leader refused to turn up for a debate. As we're talking right now, there's a debate going on, and being a student, I don't know what it is that leader could not even stand up to a general public and make a debate. That's the best chance for us to actually make a choice. This is a leader that actually doesn't run through being a leader without being opposed. So if you really care about people, you should be able to stand up to them and let them ask a question. Let the opinion be live for everyone to see. Hiding away actually does not give people much of a choice, really, as far as I'm concerned. So I want to ask, if for any reason why there should not be an MP report, because students all over the countries deserve to see their leader at least debate once.
Is there a,
Thank you. Last
there
one.
was one at the back. He's been cut off, yeah.
It's a question that isn't really focused much on manifestos, but it's to the whole panel. Do you think it's time that we reform the electoral system? Because first past the post really doesn't work. You don't really get minority parties, obviously such as Lib Dem at the moment, and the Green Party have much of a say, and those parties are the ones that are supported a lot by students.
Thank you. Back to the panel for the full question.
Thank you very much, Nina. If I can ask David to go first, that's okay.
Okay, thanks very much. And I hope I've got all these questions down. Firstly, on voter fraud. Voter fraud is not a problem in this country. There are very, very minor cases, and it's not good when it happens. But to institute a system whereby we have to go along with identity is going to disenfranchise vast numbers of people, and that is wrong. I mean, I would like to see an increase, and I do believe that we should be reducing the voting age to 17 to allow more people to vote. Young people, they've got the rest of their lives to look after. They're the ones who need to have just as much input as the old generation. So hopefully I've got these right. Chelsea asked about Brexit and the NHS. I'll do the quick one first. NHS, two things. We get more nurses in this country by bringing back nursing bursaries. I've mentioned that before. And also, yes, we do need, I've been down to A&E within the last 3 weeks. Unfortunately, I was ill. There is a tremendous big population of overseas people working in the NHS. We allow them to stay, and we make this country an inviting place for people from all around the world to come to. This should not be a hostile place. This should be open to people to come and help in our NHS. They're the ones who are making it work. Okay, on Brexit. Now, this is a bit of a long one. I hope you don't mind. I did write it all down because I thought it was going to be one of the big things. Labour and myself, Labour accepts the referendum result. And it's a Labour government that will put the national interest first. We will prioritise jobs and living standards, build a close new relationship with Europe, protect workers' rights and environmental standards, and provide certainty to EU nationals by giving them meaningful role to Parliament throughout the negotiations. Basically, we're not going to go into a Brexit negotiations by making enemies of the people we're supposed to be discussing with. We want to be on friendly terms with Europe. Europe is going to be our biggest neighbours, whether we're in the EU or out of it. Europe is important. So you don't start a negotiation by calling names to the people we're dealing with. So if we can go on to Jack, economics. Why should very rich people get their winter fuel allowance? It's quite simple. If we introduce a system of means testing, that will actually cost more than the winter fuel allowance you are giving them. It's a pointless exercise which is going to cost us more than what we save by giving a blanket to all of them. And I know that there are charities who actually ask the very wealthy to donate their fuel allowance, and they do. The Salvation Army, I believe, is one of the organisations that ask people to donate their fuel allowance if they don't need them. Simply introducing means testing is going to cost more than it actually saves. And then Colin, debate with all party leaders. Yes, I mean, one of the things I get on my soapbox about is the biased press we have in this country. And I know a lot of you are going to go into media, but I have a situation. If it was on the other foot, if it was a case of a Labour leader not wanting to debate, the Tory press would be screaming from the roof that this is unfair. Now, I believe we should have a leadership debate in this country on the television. And then the question, I couldn't get your name, electoral reform. Yes, if you go back to the beginning of the Labour Party, our founding father, Keir Hardie, advocated proportional representation back in the early 1900s. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Brexit in the Pirate Party was quite a healthy debate, actually. It was much healthier than the national one. And similarly, we kind of came out around the same kind of side, if you like, with regards to 52-48 split across the party. We firmly believe in self-determination, so consequently we agree obviously with the result because it was self-determined. We decided that's what's happening. However, we are also an evidence-based policy party as well, so consequently we also need to look at the economics of it and where we're going with it. So again, you know, we're never going to achieve a majority, so our influence in with regards to the sort of negotiations and so on will be to make sure that we get the best deal. So it's a little bit difficult to kind of touch on that. The one thing I will say about Brexit is obviously immigration figures. One of the things in the manifesto for the Conservatives, for example, we touched on overseas students. They're claiming that they're going to bring down immigration figures down to the tens of thousands again, but including the student figures still in that number. Overseas students obviously bring in lots to the economy, and also these are the people that we're training that are currently fulfilling these jobs. By restricting them down into the tens of thousands, not only are we going to lose the skilled people, we're also going to affect the economy as well. It is a situation that we can't be heading into. We have a massive skills gap in the country at the moment. With regards to leader debate, we're not invited. That kind of says that one. Proportional representation, I've already touched on that very much. We value every person's vote. We believe that everyone should self-determine. Proportional representation, single transferable vote. Personally, I like the Hare-Clark system from Tasmania, but as a party, it's very much single transferable vote. So that goes without saying. We're a small party. I think you'd expect that from us anyway. I think I've covered them all. Thank you.
Okay, lots of questions. Question one on voter ID. I'm going to put my hands up. I don't know on that one. I don't think we have a policy on it, simply because I don't think it's a problem. If you want to email me about it, I'm quite happy to send you an answer. So, my bad. Don't know an answer on that one. Brexit. Yeah, how can we make it a positive experience for students? I don't think we can. I don't think it is possible for Brexit to be a positive experience for students. And I say that as the father of two boys who have both benefited from the Erasmus scheme. My eldest son, he's my stepson, studied in Berlin under the Erasmus scheme. He met his French girlfriend. He came back to Reading, completed his degree, moved to Paris with his French girlfriend, where he's just completed a 2-year master's course at the Sorbonne. Because of freedom of movement, because of his ability to move where he wants to move in order to study what he wants to study. He's an international relations specialist. Also, he's a linguist. He speaks 4 languages fluently. He now works for an international charity providing education for Syrian refugees between Paris and Berlin. He has told me that if Brexit goes ahead and if we leave the European Union, he will ceremonially burn his British passport. He will apply for French citizenship. He will not come back. My other son studied in Alicante under Erasmus, came back, completed his degree in Edinburgh, moved to Cardiff, where he studied there. He's now at Bristol. He's a research chemist, just completing his PhD. On his Erasmus year, he met his Italian girlfriend. He now splits half his time between Bristol and the other half in Genoa. And we go to Genoa quite regularly to meet with the prospective in-laws and to meet Nonna, the Italian granny, who makes wonderful food. And again, he will apply for Italian citizenship if we leave the EU, because he feels that his research will come to an end. His research is EU funded. There will be nothing here for him if Brexit goes ahead. So that's 2 members of my family who will not come back to the UK if Brexit goes the way that it threatens to go. Now, there is a ray of light, because on page 36 of the Tory manifesto, it does talk about
retaining our association with various European projects and being prepared to pay for them. So it would sound that Brexit isn't quite the Brexit that we were told it was. Brexit may not quite mean Brexit, and I wonder how the UKIP people who've supported Connor will feel about that. They may feel a little bit betrayed. So we'll see how that unwinds over the next few weeks. But certainly it's there in the manifesto. So obviously, you know my position on Europe. We're in favour of remaining in the EU, but we had a referendum. There was a result based on an unknown. So our position is we allow these negotiations to go ahead. We allow Team May to go and do their thing, and they will come back with a deal. Now, we think the people should have a say on that deal, because although we've been told that everyone knew what they were voting for when they voted for Brexit, there do appear to be two flavours of Brexit now. There's Jeremy Corbyn's Brexit, or there's Theresa May's Brexit. Now, I keep asking Leave voters which one they voted for, and they don't know. So I think they should have a chance to have a say on whatever that final deal is that comes back from the negotiating rooms. And we must have on that ballot paper the option to remain. That's the choice that's got to be given back to the people. They started the process. Let's let them end it. On winter fuel payments, I do think we need to look at reforming winter fuel payments. I don't think they should be a blanket benefit just paid to everybody. I mentioned my mother earlier. Before she suffered from Alzheimer's, she used to have a property in Spain. She used to travel backwards and forwards to Spain. Her winter fuel payment used to pay for her airfare to Alicante. Thank you very much. Now, that doesn't seem particularly fair to me. She didn't feel particularly good about it. But she said, well, I've got the money. I might as well use it and get the Ryanair out of Bournemouth down to Alicante. Thank you. So let's look at that again. I think it was Kola. Was it Kola? Yeah. You said about why aren't the leaders debating? Absolutely. Why aren't the leaders debating? We've got people standing to lead the country. They want to represent us on the world stage, and yet they can't represent us in front of a television camera against each other. We hear that, yeah, they debate every week in Parliament at question time. You know, they all sort of yell "Yabu sucks" at each other for half an hour. But that's not debating, that's showboating. That's the grandstanding that goes on once a week on a Wednesday, I think it is, and we all listen to it, and it's all great fun, and then we all go home and forget instantly what was said. Okay, let's have a proper, meaningful debate, especially as Theresa May seems to be trying to turn this election into a presidential-style election. You read the Tory manifesto, it mentions Theresa May more than it mentions the Conservative Party. This is all about Team May. And I got to the end of reading it this afternoon. I sat down and waded through it, and I wondered if her name was Theresa May or Theresa Me. Because it just comes out time and time again. Now, if she's prepared to present herself in that way, then stand up and debate with the other party leaders. Don't run away from that. The last question on electoral reform, I agree with our party colleagues there and with Simon, single transferable vote. We must go for that. I was surprised to hear David say that he was in favour of PR. It's not in the manifesto. Now, surely if you're standing as a Labour candidate, you need to stand on the manifesto. The manifesto doesn't include PR. Labour have let us down before. We had a load of overtures from Blair and we ran away from it. We did actually manage to get a referendum coalition on PR. The wrong type of PR, and we've got dread on that one. And that's part of the reason why the Jewish fees thing happened, was part of trade. Okay. So yes, absolutely. Electoral reform. Let's go for it. Thank you very much, Phil. Connor.
Pick up from left off there. I'm at a loss to understand how the referendum on the voting system during the coalition when you negotiated, and you asked for that type to be the one on the ballot paper, that being turned down led to tuition freeze. I'm really struggling to join the dots up there. Look, as well, you chose the one put before the people, and the people voted it. We didn't. You chose it. I'm not in favour. I'm not in favour of proportional representation. I'm in favour of first past the post, and one of the reasons for that, and I suspect you were all waiting for me to say this, I think it delivers strong and stable government for our country, something we need desperately over the next 5 years. But the other main reason that I'm in favour of it, I haven't seen a system of proportional representation that keeps the direct link, the direct relationship between a single member of parliament and a specific geographic area, where there is one member of parliament that everybody knows that they can go to, that they can question, that they can seek help from. And that's one of the main reasons that I'm not in favour of changing the voting system. Moving on from that to the question of ID, voter registration when you go to vote. Look, I was born in Northern Ireland. The joke used to be in Northern Ireland for Sinn Féin, vote early, vote often. There was terrible voter fraud. People who've been dead for 30 years were voting in general elections and local elections. I don't think it's a massive problem, but any problem with voter fraud is corrosive to our democratic system. So let's see what the legislation, there'll be a draft bill, there'll be a consultation period on this if the Conservatives win the general election. Let's see what it says, feed into that consultation. There are multiple forms of ID that people now have. And if people don't like the legislation as it comes forward, the draft bill, there'll be an opportunity for members of Parliament, members of the House of Lords to propose amendments to that to change or improve it. Look, the leaders' debates, I understand why Theresa has said that she is not going to participate in what turned into a bit of a jamboree over the last couple of elections, these leaders' debate. Let's just kill this idea that leaders' debates are a perfect opportunity for ordinary members of the public to hold their party leaders to account during a general election campaign. They are showboating exercises for political journalists who often seem to give the impression that they want to be participating behind the podium rather than chairing the debate, as Daniel has done so well this evening. And anybody who thinks that leaders' debates are the answer to everything, well, there were 3 presidential debates in the United States and you got Donald Trump. So don't assume that they are necessarily the answer to everything. So let's end with the
on the Facebook card, people throw questions to them. That's what I want to see. So it's not just about being on TV, but I'm talking about people. We're going to vote. You are here today because you want others to choose between you and other candidates. And that is what should happen, including the Prime Minister elections. And that's the point I'm actually raising. I'm not interested in the show button of the media as well, but this is what I've been done. And this is supposed to be something that will give people opportunity, people like me, to listen. There's a question that will be asked. Their answer will show how intelligent they really are. And it will show if they're actually lying or they're saying the truth. Because if they ask you a question, you can't give a definite answer. Definitely you have something hiding. If I ask you what we're going to do to the NHS, then you tell me, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do, or let's look into it. Is it different for someone else that told me, when you elect as a prime minister, I'm going to increase the NHS staff, I'm going to put more funding into it. That's what I want to hear.
Thank you.
So I respect what you say, and I respect the passion with which you say it, but I also respect the Prime Minister's judgment not to participate in that type of format. And you talked about Facebook. In your first question, you said you thought Theresa May was running away. She's not running away at all. She was on Sky News yesterday or the day before doing a live Facebook chat that was mediated by a presenter on Sky News. And next week, both she and Jeremy Corbyn will be appearing in front of a live BBC Question Time audience where genuine members of the public can do to Theresa May and to Jeremy Corbyn exactly what you guys are doing so well tonight, which is directly examining and then cross-examining the people who want to be Prime Minister. I think that will be more edifying, if I'm honest, than a debate format where the leaders snipe against each other. But I respectfully suggest that you and I may not come to an outbreak of consensus and unity on that point.
Thank you so much. But this is what I simply say. Is it one question for two candidates, and that will give me a chance to see how both of them will respond. In terms of the one you are talking about, not both of them are not staying together. The question will be different from each candidate, and that is not a debate.
Sure,
this is not a twist question. It's a simple question. One question for two people, whichever give the best answer should be voted for. That is what I'm asking.
Thank you, Kola. Just leave it to Connor if he wants to.
I mean, I'll give you a sort of very final one line on that. Okay. She isn't going to do it, and it isn't going to happen. There's a question of whether we do that in future elections. She has said she's not doing it in this election. She's doing the format that she wants to do. And you know what? I actually quite like a leader who doesn't necessarily go for the round of applause and do the easy thing, because the easiest thing for her to do is say, yeah, of course we'll do the debates. She's decided she doesn't. She has decided she doesn't. She doesn't want.
Does she not want an applause then, or what's that all about?
Well, I think we'll leave the Prime Minister's shoes out of maybe move on to Brexit, which might have slightly more impact on people's lives.
Just ignored it again.
The Prime Minister did the one show. She isn't going to do the debates. I'm not Theresa May. That's her decision, and she isn't going to change it. Can I deal with Brexit? Because this is the thing that is going to dominate politics until we have it resolved. So look, I voted to leave. I campaigned to leave. I did so for internationalist reasons and democratic reasons. When I bring young children up from schools across the constituency to Westminster, and they have the tour around, they see the great history of that building that has shaped the identity of who we are as a people in the United Kingdom. I tell them that I'm not in the chamber of the House of Commons referred to as Connor or Connor Burns or Mr. Burns. I am the member for Bournemouth West, because the authority of a member of Parliament comes from the fact that they represent a certain number of people in a geographic area, whether or not those people voted for them, voted against them, or didn't vote at all. And there were a whole range of issues where Parliament had ceded control over things that affected the lives of people in this country to people in the Commission in Brussels that we do not elect and cannot remove. And that the Parliament is not directly elected in the same way that the House of Commons is. Most people don't know who their member of the European Parliament is, and there is no sense of political self-identification between a British citizen and a German citizen in terms of the MEPs they elect. It is not an institution that is truly democratic and accountable in the way that the House of Commons is. And I wanted to bring back to this country control over the laws we live under and make them here in Britain by people who we can elect and can remove. Now, we heard a moment ago that Brexit may not mean Brexit. Well, that's simply not the case at all. The line in the manifesto is very clear. On page 35, it says, we want to agree a deep and special partnership with the European Union. We are leaving, I'm coming on to page 36, we are leaving the European Union. We are not leaving Europe. We are still going to be a European country. These are still going to be the remaining members of the European Union, our closest friends, our closest allies. We will cooperate and share intelligence with them, matters of national security, and so on. And we were clear during the referendum campaign, and the Prime Minister has been clear subsequently, that we would end enormous contributions. They're described on page 36 as the days of Britain making vast annual contributions to the European Union will end. But it says there may be specific programs, European programs, in which we might want to participate? Yes, of course there will be. Erasmus would be one that I would wish to continue to participate in. Euratom, the regulatory body that governs the UK nuclear industry. Now, I said before, I worked for Greg Clark. Was his parliamentary private secretary. When we announced our decision to withdraw from Euratom, it wasn't because we don't want to have a cooperative relationship governing the safety of the nuclear sector with our European colleagues. It was simply because the legal advice was mixed. Some lawyers said that if we remained in Euratom, then the Article 50 triggering process may be deemed invaluable, would certainly be challengeable by the likes of a Gina Miller, and therefore the only way you could get a clean notification of Article 50 was to come out of that. But my boss, my former boss, the Secretary of State, has been very clear that continuity is the word in terms of Euratom. That is something we will probably wish to continue to participate in. And if there is a small fee to continue to participate in those programs, then so be it. I am completely relaxed about that. But I think that the decision to leave the European Union could be a massive opportunity for the United Kingdom to continue to cooperate, trade, and share in friendship and solidarity, a strong relationship with other members of the European Union, but to go out, as we have always done as Britain, and to negotiate trade deals and trading arrangements with the new and emerging economies, our old friends in the Commonwealth, and new countries, new economies that are emerging. And the time, I think, and this is my final word on this, the time I think now is to leave behind the labels of leave and remain and come together as a country to get the best possible deal for everyone in the United Kingdom.
The best possible deal.
I'm going to go to Simon to last.
Thank you. Let's see if I can remember everything. Harvey, Arranger Hustings.
I don't want to take over anything, but I did try with Arts University Bournemouth. I understand they're going ahead, but it's a very difficult thing to do when you're a single individual resident of the town, which is why I'm here, you know. But I apologise to anyone if you think I've butted in. I just simply wanted to make the point, and I don't think the question was answered. It's not a dig at Connor at all. It was just like, why do nurses earn £15–18 an hour and Connor can earn £333 an hour? I just want to know, why don't we value people who contribute to society?
Let me get on to the questions I've got. I've got a fair few already, so let's work through those if I can. Voter fraud and ID, I think we are at risk of further disenfranchising people. I think we have to look at that very carefully. I can't remember what the figure was, 7% of people are likely to be excluded through this, which obviously we don't want. Enough people don't vote as it is. If everyone voted for what they really believed, I think the results will be very different. I shall just touch on there about proportional representation, and not the AV vote we had a few years ago, which was, I mean, I must say, I think the Lib Dems are great, but that choice was outrageous, really. I use that word a lot today, haven't I? AV was never. If we used AV, there'd be even more Tories than there are now. So, Brexit, we want to agree, we want to do this, we want to do that. We've got to fight for that with the other countries. I'm not sure how they're feeling about us at the moment, about what we've done. The British people made a decision based on facts. I think we're using Trump facts here, not real facts. And I think, personally, I think it was the wrong decision. I voted Remain, and I think we should remain. I think there's a lot of risk to our environmental laws. There's a lot of risk to our food standards. We could end up with some of the stuff we get from America, that we don't get from America, and we don't want from America, GM food, all sorts of things that we're not going to be able to stop. And I think that's something we will live to regret. Jack mentioned winter fuel payments. I think it's not right that people that don't need them get them. Not really much more to say about that. Snap election and no show any discussions. The Greens are really keen to get into the discussions. Can you all tell the BBC that, please? They don't think we should be there. They think UKIP should be there. who are a reducing party who got, I think they retained one councillor in the last council elections. Green Party got 40, so I think, you know, perhaps they need to have a rethink. Okay, we're not going to form the next government yet. But I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. One more backbench Tory MP will make no difference whatsoever to this country. One more Green might.
Thank you very much to all our candidates. I know many of you want to ask questions, but unfortunately, we would not be able to take any more questions at this time. So I'm just going to go back to them to summarize everything they've said today for 1 minute. Sophie? Yeah. Time. I'll start with Connor.
So look, I've tried to be direct with you. I've said some things tonight that I know haven't gone down universally brilliantly. Politics, government is difficult. You're not going to satisfy all the people all the time. I have always taken the view in politics I'd rather be respected than liked. And one of my political heroes is the great philosopher Edmund Burke. And I want to just quickly tell you this, because I quoted him to my constituents in one of the most important votes that I have cast in the 7 years that I've been a member of Parliament. And it was a vote where those who contacted me from within Bournemouth West overwhelmingly wanted me to vote a particular way. And I voted the other way. And they were very angry about that. And what Edmund Burke said was that your representative owes you his energy, his industry, his rest he must sacrifice to your interests. But he owes you above all his judgment. And he betrays you rather than serves you if he sacrifices his judgment to your opinion. That issue was same-sex marriage. If I had listened to the majority, I would have voted against. I'm very proud that I went to Parliament and listened to my conscience on that. And that is what I will always do if I'm re-elected as your Member of Parliament.
Thank you, Connor. Simon? Do you want to... So Connor had extra 10 seconds, so that would be the same for the rest of the panel.
Well, I think it's been an interesting debate. I hope I've got some of my thoughts and messages across to you all. I am concerned that the energy that Connor has, if he's spending 80 hours on this and 20, but let's not knock the poor chap. He's doing his best, I think. Brilliant, good, okay. Get some sleep, I would. The Green Party stands for the future. It stands for our children and our children's children. I mean, it really needs to think about where we're going and what we're doing. We cannot continually use the planet the way we're using it. We cannot take the oil and gas out of the ground and expect to meet the Paris Accord. We have to go forward. We have to change things. Some decisions will be difficult, but we've got to think of the future. I think, as I've said it, and I'll say it again, because I quite like it, one more Green in government will make a difference. One more backbencher won't.
Thank you.
Hello. Well, I hope I've managed to make it quite clear that I quite like Europe. Actually, I think we should be remaining within Europe, but at the very least, we must give people the say on what that deal is that comes back. Okay. We are very much in favour of promoting the housing that we need. We need to ensure we have the schools that we need and that children are properly fed so they can actually survive through the day rather than getting a free breakfast, which will mean they're starving by lunchtime and they won't get anything after that. And we need to ensure that we're looking after the people most in need by funding the NHS and social care properly. As I interjected when Connor was speaking, when he talks about getting the best deal for Britain in Europe, I believe we've already got the best deal and we need to hold on to that.
Well, I'd like to start by once again thanking you and for organising this debate. Thank you for the students who did organised the hustings. It was really good, and thank you all for coming along. Now, on June the 8th, I'm going to ask you to cast your vote for Labour, whether it's in this constituency of Bournemouth West, in which case it will be for me, or whether it's in your home constituencies. That vote is vital, because with Labour, you've got a progressive and dynamic manifesto. A Labour government with Jeremy Corbyn as Prime Minister is not only going to be good for you, it's going to be good for the country and the world at large. So please, ladies and gentlemen, vote Labour on June the 8th.
I also want to say thank you for the invite to the hustings. It was a bit last minute for me. I got it today, so hence the reason I was a little bit less prepared than everybody else. But I thank you for the organisation of it, so I do appreciate it. Why vote for the Pirate Party? Your voice will be heard. It's quite simple. We have an open manifesto. It's crowdsourced. We listen to every member. We are very different. We are not leader-led. We are led by our members. That is probably the biggest thing I would say, first off. Privacy. Again, with regards to digital rights, we talked about voter ID. Privacy is paramount. Likewise, freedom of speech, personal freedoms, civil liberties, all of the things that we take for granted that are gradually being eroded online in particular. These are just some of the issues I'm trying to raise just by standing. And hopefully we can start some debates and conversations about them. Obviously, the more votes I get, the bigger that debate will come. And that's kind of why I'm standing. So please, for those of you that know nothing about us, have never heard about us, go and have a look. I think you'll be surprised. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and that's it. I'd like to say thank you to all our candidates. Can we give them a round of applause for your time and effort to talk about your policies? It's been an interesting one. And thank you to all of you for your patience. Yeah, appreciate yourself as well. Thank you for coming and staying. Deadline to register is next week, 22nd of May. So please have a say. We've not come here to tell you who to vote for, but make sure you have your say in the elections. So please. Yeah, definitely. And again, thank you to Nerve TV for your amazing work this evening. Thank you very much. But yeah, thank you. Have your say, vote in the elections, and have a good evening.